am I doing? And I had my mic on mute. I was just saying how unprofessional this is of me. So I set all this up, and then I forgot to send out the link. I scheduled it way earlier today, and then so David should be here. It's my fault that he's not here because I'm sending him the link right now, or I'm trying to. It'll let me. Anyway, he should be here, and then we'll talk about judges. Anyone else is welcome to join, as far as I know. I'll wait to see though, because he might want to talk about some stuff before he let people in. I can't remember what chapters we're going through. I think we're actually gonna try to go through some chapters. All right, Mitch says play a song. What song do I play? That is, I don't even remember that one. I mean, I know it's not hard because none of my songs are hard. I just have to listen to it again. Hey.
Hello.
Sorry, that was my fault. I set it up and then I forgot to send out the link. For some reason, I just thought after I set it up, people could just find it and hop on, but that doesn't make sense. So,
well, sometimes I click on the YouTube, and it just has it there.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to link it to that. Maybe there's a way to do that, or I could put it in the description or something. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, if that only takes a second, then go ahead and do it. I was very happy to whatever extent Mitch interacted, and very, very happy with the emails and stuff that we got based on it. So
yeah,
very, very happy to hear other people's opinions.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, we got some feedback. Hopefully, it'd be cool if Joseph could join us too as well, because I know he gave us a lot of feedback. But
yeah.
Well, so which chapters we're just reading through some of the chapters today, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna start. We're gonna start at 3, and then kind of continue on from there. So 3 is where the actual idea of judges is really introduced. We talked about chapters 1 and 2 as being introductions. One of the things that my Hebrew Bible professor kind of really put into me was the idea that there were natural breaks in the text, and that the text was like showing them to you directly. So I think one of those breaks is that you immediately find out about Othniel, but then it talks like in terms about all of the story. So that to me seems to be like and then returns to Othniel. So it's like, okay, I think all of this is supposed to be a preview of the book or an introduction. Yeah, and then it actually comes back to the story in chapter 3.
Yeah, I noticed that before. That is weird how it breaks from him. I didn't know that. So you're saying when it breaks, it's kind of. You repeat that one more time? Like when it breaks, it does what? It kind of focuses or hints at something?
So a way of thinking about it is that the breaks are not accidents. So when we read it, we're generally just trying to get what happens. And then so when there's a break, we're like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing them as natural sections of a text. So an example of this is there's in Genesis, the text is clearly broken up by genealogies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you could almost see those in between genealogies as being chapters, or you could see them as books in and of themselves.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So this is because it's not not accidental where those breaks are. Same thing, I believe, in Exodus, where there's a genealogy. It seems like the text is very deliberately being broken up. So when you see that pause, instead of thinking, "Oh, that's weird," right? Like if you're
Yeah.
how one of the ways that I think about it is if you watch a show on streaming that had commercials, they still like they have breaks, and then
Oh,
there's a
okay.
repetition of what happened right before.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
weird. But if you're watching it on Netflix, you're like, this is weird because
Yeah, yeah.
this moment didn't happen after 2 minutes of a break. This moment happened immediately after you just said exactly this moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So some of the repetitions in the text are actually doing that.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. You're back.
Okay.
You popped out for a second. All right.
Shall we start on chapter 3?
Yeah. You want me to read it or you want to?
Here you read the first section. Read so 3:1 to 6.
3:1 to 6. All right. Now these are the nations which the Lord. Oh, do you want me to read New King James or does it matter?
I'm doing English Standard Version.
I
That's
can
that's my
look that up.
go-to.
ESV Judges 3. Let me try this.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe I can just pull up the screen too. Let's see. Present. Share screen. Then people could read along if they're watching. Did that work? Yeah, there we go. So it should be down there. Yeah. Awesome.
Great picture. Very happy with the with that thumbnail.
Oh, yeah, the background. Yeah, you sent it to me. You found it. All right. So I'll read this. Now, these are the nations that the Lord left to test Israel by them. That is, all in Israel who had not experienced all the wars in Canaan. It was only in order that the generations of the people of Israel might know war, to teach war to those who had not known it before. These are the nations, the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites who lived on Mount Lebanon, and from Mount Baal Hermon as far as Lebo Hamath. They were for testing of Israel. They were for the testing of Israel, to know whether Israel would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. So the people of Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And their daughters they took to themselves for wives, and their own daughters they gave to their sons, and they served their gods.
Okay. So, well, actually, let me ask you: is there anything in there that stands out to you?
I mean, it's always, intriguing that God leaves these people to test them because they hadn't known war, because it's weird because in Exodus, if I remember right, I think he leads them through the wilderness because he's scared they'll flee back to Exodus when they see war. So it's like God originally, when they leave Exodus, he kind of wants to make them avoid war. And then here it's like he wants to introduce them to war. So that's what's kind of always been perplexing to me.
Well, I was thinking about this, that we've been having this conversation a lot more often. This idea of like hard times produce strong men produce easy times, easy men produces soft men. Sorry, yeah, easy times produces soft men produce hard
Oh yeah,
times produce strong men. And so this idea that God leaves some amount of a challenge, some amount
yeah,
of difficulty for them to have to deal with, and that this will make them. I don't like test to me has such a negative connotation when we're talking about it,
oh
whereas
yeah,
it's like, and I guess it shouldn't, like an opportunity to prove yourself, an opportunity to be strengthened. Um, and the great tragedy of that thing that's there to make you stronger becomes a temptation, a way that you fall
Yeah.
instead of become strong.
Yeah, that's good. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Like I definitely experienced that in life. And sometimes when difficulty comes, actually recognizing it as such makes you much more able to do a thing. Because
Yeah.
you're like, this is one of the only opportunities I will have to put up with such a difficult time. And so I really should suffer well.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I'm gonna think of that a lot. That's pretty convicting too, like in my own personal life, because I feel like, yeah, there's times like where I think we struggle with sin and we almost cry out to God and say, take this, just take the temptation from me. But it's weird because I think there's a way God can leave the temptation. Not that He tempts you, but leaves, with things like lust or something like that. Like if God were to remove all lust from your heart, it would probably be somewhat for Him to remove a lot of desire. And it's like if He leaves that desire, you have the capacity to fall into lust. Because
Mhm.
but yeah, but it's like,
Well, if you think of it as like a bench pressing, right? Is
yeah,
this is the weight, and if you lift it, it will make you stronger, and if you give up on lifting it, it will choke you to death,
oh
right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
so you put yourself in this situation. You're not doing it to choke yourself to death. You're doing it to become stronger.
yeah.
Um, yeah, one of those times that it actually happened to me was um, I'm married now, but back in my dating days, in the middle of like a really bad breakup, I was just like, I realized that the suffering I was experiencing was an opportunity to be learning from that. Because there's certain things you can only become better at because you're in agony, and that will prepare you for the next time something happens.
Yeah.
And like I literally felt it that it was like God was telling me, you become strong by this. Like don't waste this agony. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, which is funny because we want to move past it so quickly, not be like, okay, be trained by it, be disciplined by it, become strong by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I kind of feel this introduction is that it's making it clear in case you reading this chapter would think to yourself, oh, it was a failure that any of these nations were left behind. It's a failure. God didn't fully help us. Um, this
Yeah. Yeah.
was this was a fluke.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. 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 It's really
Instead,
interesting.
yeah, instead it's like God did this deliberately, so not even to tempt us, but to make us prepared. But then we fall short.
Why do you think that is? I mean, well, I mean, why do you think? I mean, everything you said makes sense, but why do you think that is? That in Exodus, He seemed to do the opposite, like when He was leading them through the wilderness.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain like it to me is God meeting the people where they're at. So I would just
Okay.
say that the people there were at a different place, right? And it's not the further along in scripture you go, there's this concept. Have you ever heard of the Tanakh?
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea of that is that Torah is more inspired than the prophets or the wisdom literature. And when you think in those terms, you'll come across stuff in Ecclesiastes that you're like, what the heck is that? It's like,
Yeah.
well, it's wisdom literature and it requires a kind of maturity that's beyond the the direct like for everyone stories of Genesis. That there's a depth to some of it that the wrong person reading it could actually literally be pulled astray, right? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
majority of the
Okay.
verses where people who um, I think unwisely become against even drinking any wine in any situation, like banning of alcohol, is all comes from wisdom literature, where there's proverbs about like men who are drunkards, but doesn't take like one of my favorite ones actually. One of my favorite, is it in Proverbs? No, it's in Ecclesiastes. Do not be overly righteous nor overly wicked. Why should you destroy yourself?
Yeah. Do not be overly foolish. Why should you die before your time? Do not be overly wise nor be foolish. Why should you die before your time? Yeah.
Yes. And this to me, one of the reasons why I love that so much is that when you read that, if you are immature, that might let you give yourself permission to do something terrible. But if you're wise, it it allows you to know what kind of freedom you actually have.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I would say. I would say that this is a different group of people.
Okay.
And that's everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's I mean, practically it's a different group of people. I guess just what I wonder what that means. I don't know if symbolically is the right word. Because from I guess the symbolism of it, it seems like they're going into the land of promise, the land of Canaan, flowing with milk and honey, where you have like giants, basically. It's giants living in the land, mighty men. So they're kind of going up towards, to me, it almost seems like they're going up to more like a divine, godlike state. I mean, they're going into the Holy Land, right? So they're going into a holy and holier place. And so in my mind, I always see giants as kind of like, I mean, basically angels in some way, because they're the seed of angels. So they could even be like fallen angels or something like that. I don't know if that's the right way to look at it, but then that's just what is interesting to me, because you have like you said, one type of people that's in the wilderness, basically fasting and mourning, and not necessarily, they do encounter war towards the end, but it is against like giants or whatever. So then this new group of people is like almost like required to be battle tested to dwell in this holy land or something like that.
Yeah, there's a part in Joshua where one group of people takes over something immediately, actually, before they even cross, and they say, "This is a great land. Could we have this land?" And Joshua tells them, it's important though that you, even though you already have your inheritance, that you don't stop fighting for your brothers who have not received their inheritance yet. So you have a level of rest that everyone else doesn't have. So will you, even though you don't have to, continue fighting? Right?
Yeah.
What is interesting also about what you just said, and I don't know if you did it intentionally, is you are quite right that there's still some of these groups are part of the giant clans. Verse 3, these are the nations, the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites and the Sidonians and the Hivites who lived on Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon as far as Lebo Hamath. Do you know the significance of that?
No, I don't. Not those places, no.
So there's some debate as to the pantheon for Baal is Hermon.
Oh, okay.
And in extra biblical literature, Hermon is identified as the place where the angels fell that took human wives.
What? No way. That's crazy. Damn.
Yeah. So, and you can read all about Hermon. And it's crazy because it continues all the way until the time of Christ, because the Romans believed that there was an entrance into the underworld there. but unless I'm mistaken, um, it Herman is also means place of oath because the fallen angels bind themselves with an oath. It's also where in the Epic of Gilgamesh they believed. Let me just open it up. Da-da-da-da. Yeah, it's related to the Semitic root for taboo or consecrated. Uh, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Mount Hermon split out after Gilgamesh killed Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest. In Ugaritic, that was the where the palace of Baal is located. Yeah, yeah. So it's in the Rome, another Greek inscription found in a large temple on the northern slopes. Where is it?
Sorry, I was trying to move my computer. It's like got extremely hot for some reason. My laptop. I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll keep going. I think
Yeah,
that.
unless I'm mistaken, I have to double check it, but I'm pretty sure that it is identified as a place where the underworld could be entered in Greek mythology, and
Whoa.
it's where Baal lived. It's all like, and then it's identified as the place where the angels fell. So it as a location as we're hitting it is a very interesting. Um, yeah, it's a weird thing.
Yeah. That's
Um,
crazy.
and then I think this is actually being referenced.
Is that connected? So Baal Hermon. Sorry, real quick question. That's in Mount Lebanon as well.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
it's even that description, because unless I'm mistaken, it's right on the border. Is that right?
Hmm.
See if I find this properly. Yeah, yeah,
Hezzy, get in here, man. If you want to hop in.
yeah.
He's been
Sometimes,
commenting.
yeah. It's the Lebanon mountain range, the mountain range of Lebanon.
Oh,
It's
gotcha.
right there. Yeah.
Let's see. Ramban says it means the mount you don't touch. Huh.
Yeah, the description I gave was a taboo, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, this is also "Go Up You Bald Head, Go Up You Bald Head" is up on that mountain.
What?
Like
No way. That's great.
it's the holy place of Baal worship.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and in the passage that we're reading, and their daughters they took to themselves for wives, and their own daughters they gave to their sons, and they served their gods. That
Yeah.
language of the taking the daughters,
Yeah.
it's difficult
Sounds
for me to
familiar.
see that this is unrelated to the Giants,
To
to
Genesis 6.
exactly, yeah, to Genesis 6 and all of that stuff. And without a
Yeah.
doubt, in extra biblical material, they would be making these connections.
Yeah,
whether
because all
or
of
not,
those that it lists are, I mean, and I'm pretty positive they're all like the seed of giants if you follow that through. I can't remember all the references. I used to have it written down, but like the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, I think are all, yeah. So
yeah,
that's,
there's
yeah, the language is very similar.
Raphaim, Nephilim, yeah, Anakim, yeah.
That
Um,
connection is only done on Enoch. What does that mean? That's connection. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that
yeah,
means.
yeah,
Hezzy.
yeah.
Up
So
here.
when I was saying extra biblical material, that's
Yeah.
where. So it.
Oh, the Book of
One of the
Enoch.
questions is,
Okay.
why do these places get labeled in this way, right?
Yeah.
And to what extent are these traditions older? Because there's some bits of Enoch that are definitely new,
Hmm.
much later written pieces, but there's some bits of Enoch that come from much older traditions. So he's quite right in what he's saying. Um, but it is interesting that if we just look archaeologically, we see on the summit, like we know that there are what temples are there. We know another material, like the thing that I said about Baal dwelling on the top there,
Hmm.
his palace being there. That's Ugaritic. It's not even
Yeah, yeah,
biblical material, right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
they
yeah.
believed that pantheons were in those places, and particularly because Baal is essentially like the biggest temptation um, for alternative worship. I mean, it's difficult with that name Baal because Baal is a name like Adonai, where it
Mhm.
literally means Lord or husband or
Yeah.
master, but then also is associated with a particular storm god,
Hmm.
um, where these things kind of get mixed together. Um, but yeah, so the and even just the people being there and it being called Baal Hermon, knowing that Mount Hermon is associated as where Baal's palace is, it doesn't. I don't know. I don't know which perspective you take. I certainly take a perspective that these entities are not merely um, human inventions. I don't take
Alien
that perspective.
UFOs.
I
Yeah.
don't go there.
Just kidding.
I go demons, but yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But that there's real entities that are against
Mitch says this.
the
Look at
Lord.
this. This is the most arrogant statement I've ever heard Mitch make. Be humble, man. Now you're gonna find yourself worshiping Baal, and you won't even know. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, so this
That's
makes its
good.
way to the Hebrew
I like that he said
Bible.
that.
It's kind of hinted that the Lord. I mean, even I Jacob told me to try not to use the divine name, not so like try not to use the divine name so
He
much.
says I
But it's
repent.
difficult not to say it in this sentence. So that Yahweh becomes Adonai. Adonai is a word meaning Lord, right? So there's other gods though that get called Adonai,
Mhm.
and there's other gods that get the title Baal. Molech is the term for king, right? Molech and Melech,
Oh,
king.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, and especially if you're just looking at consonants, it's a royal term, right? Um,
Oh,
so to it and it because Israel is mixing these things, it says, oh, I think it's in Hosea where he says, "No longer will you call me my Baal."
yeah.
Like you won't
Yeah,
use
yeah.
that term anymore
To call me your
because
husband.
yeah, because you're gonna. I mean, it's like my family's Maltese, and Malta is Semitic language. Maltese is a Semitic language, and we got it from the Moors, who are a Muslim group. So the word for God in Maltese is Allah,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah, yeah.
So so the God of the Bible in Maltese is Allah,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
Yeah.
you could see how that could like even the term God El becomes foreign gods take on that title as well, right? Like
Yeah.
what it's not just the words, it's what we mean by them. So
Yeah, yeah.
you could call God King of the Universe, Melech Haolam, which is a term that's used a lot in synagogue. But Molech, so that term king, Melech, um, in and of itself can be taken. Sorry, I don't want to just dwell here. I feel like we're
Yeah,
stuck
that's
here,
right.
so we just
Yeah.
have to move on. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I understand
um,
though. That's the development of language. Yeah, and language gets mixed. They're just words for yeah categories.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we can move on though. Othniel, did you want to read that part or
Sure,
Othniel? How do we say it?
sure, yeah. And the
Okay.
people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth. Therefore, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the people of Israel served Cushan Rishathaim 8 years. But when the people of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for the people of Israel, who saved them, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord was upon him, and he judged Israel. He went out to war, and the Lord gave Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hands. And his hand prevailed over Kishan Rishathaim, so the land had rest 40 years. Then Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died.
Nice.
Any thoughts?
No, you gotta help me out here. I'm not really sure. Othniel was the one mentioned earlier, though, right? Was it earlier, or is this is the second?
Yeah,
Or do they
yeah,
mention him again? Okay, all right.
yeah. It's chapter 1 and chapter 3.
And he's the cousin or brother or something of Caleb. I can't remember. He's related to Caleb, and then he gets. Oh, maybe or he marries Caleb's daughter. I can't remember. It's something like that. And then he gets the upper springs and the lower springs.
So everything that you said is true.
Okay, all right.
He is Caleb's brother. Well, okay, so the Hebrew is a little bit unsure exactly what their relationship is, but it's definitely familial. It's either,
Yeah.
But
Gotcha.
if he is brothers with Caleb, which is
His younger brother, yeah. That's
then the marriage is technically illegal according to Levitical law.
it's biblical
Forbidden marriage.
to it. Oh, it's illegal? Is that what you said?
It's
forbidden?
illegal. It's not allowed. So
It's not biblical.
I tend to think that is what is being described, because then you have the first judge joins Israel, but is literally a non-Israelite.
It says half brother.
Half brother. Okay, there you go.
I don't know.
Either way, I don't think it would be a good marriage. It seems to be, and even if it's not a bad marriage, it is he is someone who is not like his ancestors are of these other nations. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because Caleb is, right? Like
yeah. Caleb is a Canaanite, right?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Caleb is an insult, right?
Yeah, he's
or at least in some languages it is. Which is still held in English, but only one gender of dog.
Right?
Because that's in ancient English, you would use the word dog the same way you would use the word bitch.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's a common thing where animals are insults, right?
Yeah.
I worked with an Iraqi guy. He was Assyrian, and there was a guy at work he didn't like. He was just like, I do not trust this man. He is a donkey of a man.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
He would say that, and like, Hamara is jackass, right? But he didn't say that guy's a jackass. He said he's a donkey of a man.
That's funny.
I'm like, that's great. He would call people animals all the time. Didn't trust this one. Do not trust him. He is a snake. You use the snake. Like, it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So what else you got in this passage that we can bring apart?
I wonder about the problem of converts. This is more like a jumping off point where to see how bad things are, like if it's really good, you get a lot of converts. And so that's positive. But when it's bad, the need for converts is a problem. I kind of see where it's like, why aren't there heroes who actually are from you? Why aren't you like where there's even if you just look at churches or denominations where um, it's something I've wondered about the Orthodox, the Catholic, and everything else. There's people that convert, but the children don't stay, right? Like to be really healthy, you have people stick around. You're not
Yeah.
dependent upon outsiders coming in. So I mean, yeah, I got questions about all that.
I don't know. I don't have answers.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
really think it's just a jumping off point. It's something that I wonder because to me, it's a hint of either how good things are or how bad things are. And because we're going through Judges, I think it's a hint at how bad things are.
This is why it's important for Jethro to be at Sinai.
Yeah, and oh well, that is just about to come up because Jethro is a Kenite, and though his descendants follow along as well. So even the story of Yael of Jael is she's a Kenite. She is a descendant.
Oh,
So
okay. Gotcha. I didn't know that.
within three stories, within three judges, the heroes are going to be non-Israelites, non-descendants of Jacob.
It's a hint of 13 tribe. We always had a universal message.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that even that the first hero is this outsider character.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's read this next story.
You want me to do it? Or do you want to do it?
Yeah, read until 15. Like stop at 15.
Okay. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He gathered to himself the Ammonites and the Amalekites, and went and defeated Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. And the people of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years.
Read one more. All
right. Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord, and the Lord raised up for them a deliverer, Ehud, I guess. Is that how you say it? Ehud? The son of Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjamite, a left-handed man. The people of Israel sent tribute to him, to Eglon, the king of Moab. Keep going or no?
No. Let's pause there. So Ehud. Do you like conspiracy theories? By the way, are you?
Yeah, let's do it. I love those.
Okay, so Ehud is there's a famous Israeli prime minister named Ehud Barak, who has all kinds of connections with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. So you go down, it continues to be a popular name, Ehud. But that's just something I'm saying in passing, and we're moving on to something that's actually in the text. Ehud is a left-handed man.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the poop thing?
Oh, where you wipe with one hand. You wipe with your left hand, right?
Yeah, you wipe with your. Yeah, so you have an always clean hand and a hand that is not so clean.
Yeah, so, I've heard that before.
For a while I was having conversations with a group of Muslims about the differences between the Bible and the Quran, and they were Pakistani, and they were like, a lot of them were immigrants, and in the bathrooms, on the toilets, there was toilet paper, but there was also just a pitcher of water. Because so many people, if they were born over there, did not use toilet paper.
Yeah.
Wow. And so it's still, in some cultures, is a tradition, like you don't touch anything with your left hand. That is your dirty hand.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
sorry. No, I was just saying, in India, they had like bidets everywhere. And I think a lot of them don't use toilet paper there. I'm pretty sure they don't, but I don't think they use their hand.
Yeah. Yeah, it was my friend.
But you do eat. you eat with, like, what you've been eating there, when you eat with your hands, you just learn to do that anyway because, well, when you eat with your right hand, you get that hand dirty. So, like, I mean, that's what I learned to do, because then if you want to reach for a glass of water, like, my left hand would actually be the clean one while I'm eating. Because while I'm eating, this one's covered in food
that's
or rice or
interesting.
something, yeah. So, like, so I would, like, never use this hand to scoop up food because I'd reach for a glass of water or something, so I'd only use this hand. And I think all of them, all of the people I ate with over there did the same thing.
I wonder. Yeah, I'll have to look into more of how that might work.
Yeah.
But so the
he said
first, the
killed
yeah,
them. What? I didn't even know that. We haven't got there yet, but it's just,
yes, yeah, we're gonna get there for sure. So the first judge is not a descendant of Jacob. The second judge is a guy who's a poop-handed guy,
yeah.
right?
Well,
And there's also an irony in his name.
Okay, what's that?
So the only left-handed characters in the Bible at the end there's a group of Benjaminites who are all left-handed warriors with a sling.
Yeah.
And Benjamin is son of my right hand.
Yeah, that's always confused me. I don't know.
So the only left-handed people are son of my right hand.
Yeah.
So your right hand is your strong hand, right? So it could be translated as son of strength.
And then they're all left-handed, and I'm not quite sure what the significance of that is. Like, I really don't.
I don't know, but it's definitely ironic, funny. There's something weird about it.
Yeah, I don't know that it necessarily kind of means like a trickster thing. I mean, with this passage in Judges, it seems to be kind of a trickster thing. Like, your left hand is kind of a deceptive one, and that's why he's like got a hidden dagger or something. But I'm not sure if that's necessarily.
Yeah, that's
convey.
No, I think you're onto something. Some people think that him being left-handed means that they, like, if you're right-handed, you would bind your sword to your left thigh. And so if he was given a basic pat down, they would have been checking for the weapon of a right-handed man, right?
Okay.
They wouldn't necessarily be checking the other way. So some people use that as like a deception thing. And the other group of warriors is in relationship to the rebellion of Benjamin at the end. And a lot of people have also noted that Ehud, Othniel, though he's an outsider, he's technically part of Judah, which is David, and Benjamin is Saul. So already the tension of what will be 1st and 2nd Samuel, you could see already presented here in the ordering of the judges.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
Let's get to a funny part.
All right, let's do it. You want to read or?
You.
I was trying to look at Mitch's text too. He said, "Could you guys detour to 2 Corinthians 6, reference left hand, right hand?" I was trying to see what that was.
So there's a lot of left hand, right hand. It appears many places.
Yeah, I don't know. He'll have to give me a verse or something. He says, "Feel free to say no," but I don't even know what verse he's talking about. He just said 2 Corinthians 6, so I don't know what that is.
1 Corinthians 6?
So he said 2 Corinthians 6. But maybe he meant first, because I don't know what he's talking about with left hand, right hand.
There we are.
I don't know. On the right hand and on the left, is that what it says there? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is.
But in servants of God, we command ourselves in every way.
By the word of truth, by the power of love, by the armor of righteousness on the right hand and on the left. So, you're just ready in season and out? I don't know what that means. That's to me, it's really strange. The son of my right hand, and then you think of if you had your son and he's walking at your right, I guess that would be the intention. He'd be standing at your right hand. He's left-handed. then your two strong hands would be the ones you'd lock if you were holding your son's hand or something. But I have no idea what that
Right.
means.
So it's a reference to strength. I was thinking about this too, that um, if you were in a battle line, the soldier that protects you is the soldier on your right. Because you'd hold
That's
your sword in one hand and your shield would be in your left. So
yeah,
your shield covers you and the person next to you, right?
yeah.
Um,
That's interesting.
yeah. So maybe a reference to protection. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting.
I do not. I'm sorry, Mitch. I don't know what to do with that. With the Second Corinthians bit, and
With weapons
yeah,
of righteousness, it's also weird that it comes with the whole litany of opposing poles.
yeah. I'm not sure what to do with it. I think I don't have any answer on the top of my head because I have not looked into it at all.
Yeah.
So I think I can't be helpful with that right now. So maybe we just continue with the judges bit
Let's do it. Let's do it.
where I've put too much effort. I'll read the next part. And Ehud made for himself a sword with two edges, a cubit in length, and he bound it to his right thigh under his clothes. And he presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. And when Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, he sent away the people who carried the tribute. But he himself turned back at the idols near Gilgal and said, I have a secret message for you, O king. And he commanded silence. And all his attendants went out from his presence. And Ehud came to him as he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. And Ehud said, I have a message from God for you. And he arose from his seat. And Ehud reached with his left hand, took the sword from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. And the hilt also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade. For he did not pull the sword out of his belly, and the dung came out. Then Ehud went out into the porch and closed the doors of the roof chamber behind him and locked them. When he had gone, the servants came. And when they saw that the door of the roof chamber was locked, they thought, surely he is relieving himself in the closet of the cool chamber. And they waited till they were embarrassed. But when he still did not open the doors of the roof chamber, they took the key and opened them, and there laid their lord dead on the floor. Any thoughts on this a little bit?
Nope. You go ahead. Tell me what you're thinking.
So,
Already said.
number one, it's funny. I think it's supposed to be funny. I think you're supposed to laugh at this. When we laugh at things, we oftentimes go, "Oh, that's the wrong reaction," and let's try to take this. Come on, guys, be serious. But I actually think you're supposed to laugh at the very fat man having poop come out of his wound.
Yeah.
And them thinking he is relieving himself.
Was he killed in the
you
toilet though? Because as he says he was, I guess he would have been. I don't know.
This is what I think. I think he's got the sword in him.
Yeah.
He's making the noise that one makes with a sword in him,
Yeah.
and there's poop coming out of that wound.
Yeah.
So you can smell the poop, and you are making the noise, and they think he's really giving it.
God.
he's,
Gross.
that he's
That's gross.
I have a dog, and so the way I refer to a very large poop is a double bagger.
Oh my gosh.
They right, because when my dog takes too large of a poop, you have to use more than one bag. So
That's how-
Ehud's having they think he's having a double bagger up there.
Yeah,
Um,
that's funny.
Not to be coarse. A couple of things. I've done a lot of studies on Ruth, and in the Midrash, you know what Midrash is? You know what Midrash is?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I
So
don't.
in the Midrash, the Jewish legends that go along with the stories, um, Ruth and Orpah are daughters of Eglon
Okay. Ah,
because
that's
it relates to the Moabites because they're Moabite women, um, and I think that it's trying to make this connection that maybe Ruth was royal even before, like that David's grandmother was royal uh,
that's interesting.
on that
Yeah.
side too. Um, I don't see any hints of that within the text, but the bigger thing for me, which I absolutely love, um, is the death of Stalin. Do you know about the death of Stalin? So to me, this is perfect archetypal story in that it happens again. Stalin has a stroke, and the guards outside of his door hear him have a stroke. But because he's such a tyrant, they are scared to open the door. And so um, he is left after his stroke for like 8 hours before he gets medical attention. Yes, and so it may have been that if they brought him a doctor, well, another thing that's perfect is he did a purge of of the doctors because the doctors they're not the proletariat, the doctors they're part of the bourgeoisie, right?
Yeah.
So he purges the doctors, um, and in some of those cases, like he purged the Jews, he purged the doctors, he purged anyone if he thought, oh, these are not real proletariat, and not realizing to what extent these people actually contributed. So there wasn't good doctors to see him, and because he was a tyrant, and number two because he was a tyrant, he didn't even get to see this bad doctor for 8 hours. So some people have said it's possible that if he wasn't such a tyrant, he would have survived that stroke.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it is to me, I don't know if anyone else has made this comparison. It's the same story. It's you would have caught Ehud, or you would have helped, you would have whatever, but
Yeah. Maybe he wasn't such a glutton. Yeah.
yeah, if you were a glutton and a tyrant and all that other stuff, but it's the archetype of the tyrant's death where um so there's a movie that I do recommend to people called The Death of Stalin, and The Death of Stalin it's a comedy.
Really.
Yeah, because the way that they thought about it was, if you accurately tell this story, it's funny, it's ridiculous, and so they they have the guards and they hear Stalin have the stroke, and they're like they bicker, they fight with each other about opening the door because one of them wants to open it and the other one's swearing at him like, no, we're not going to do this, right? Like this is how people die. um
Yeah.
it's a very very funny movie, and it is very historically accurate because essentially everything that happens is so ridiculous
Yeah.
that to tell the story accurately, you do it with like you have to laugh, you have to mock, you have to all this stuff. That's an expression as well. If you weren't laughing, you'd be crying.
Yeah. I've heard that before.
Yeah, like one of the pieces is that one of his officials, after he would hang out with Stalin, his wife would pull out a notebook and he would say to his wife, made a joke about the Italians. Stalin laughed. Made a joke about the Romanians. Stalin didn't laugh. And he would like literally document everything that Stalin found funny because he was like kept around for Stalin's amusement. And so if you weren't funny, he just would like torture you to death, execute you, take you in the middle of the night. But so like it's so preposterous that it's like it's funny, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
so the story of Eglon, it has this like very dramatic, this is the message God has for you, right? Like very
Yeah.
overly written line, but then within its context, it's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have to say about that. You can finish up the reading.
Oh, okay. Back to this.
Yeah,
Well,
until we get to Shamgar.
let's see. Ehud or whatever escaped while they delayed, and he passed beyond the idols and escaped to Sierra. When he arrived, he sounded the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim. Then the people of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he was their leader. And he said to them, "Follow after me, for the Lord has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand." So they went down after him and seized the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites and did not allow anyone to pass over. And they killed at that time about 10,000 of the Moabites, all strong, able-bodied men. Not a man escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years. After him was Shamgar, the son of Anat, who killed 600 of the Philistines with an ox goad, and he also saved Israel. Shamgar, son of Anat.
That's the one that Mitch wanted us to talk about because he's the one one verse kind of a guy. But so that last section, the removing the Moabites, this to me does seem like a good context for the book of Ruth. Because Ruth is all about the land of the Moab, land of the Moabites, the Moabite wives. Ruth the Moabite is how she's referred to over and over again. And I think after we're done with Judges, we should talk about Ruth. Because I think there's some pretty interesting things take place there.
I don't know what to say about Shamgar. Sorry, go ahead and finish your.
No, we'll get there when we get there.
I was looking up Anat because I was right. I was like, I thought that was like a goddess, and it was a Babylonian goddess back then. Instead of Anat. Anath, yeah, or Naat, but Anath I think is similar. I heard someone else talk to me about this before. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Hezi or Yosef or something. And or maybe it was on Jacob's channel, and that I forgot his name right now. Is it Ariel? Ashura's Orchard. He knows a bunch of crazy stuff about all this, like interconnectedness between the Babylonians and everything. And maybe it was him, but I think what does Shamgar actually mean? What does it mean in Hebrew? Sword, son of Anath, the judge of Israel. Huh? His name means sword, and he killed people with an ox goad. That's interesting.
Well, okay, yeah. So this I definitely have a little bit of perspective on.
Anath is the name of an adolescent warrior goddess in the Canaanite pantheon.
Yeah. Huh. So we get a reference in 1 Samuel that the Israelites are not allowed, like they are not even allowed to sharpen their own implements.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
So
yeah.
You know that verse that says, "Beat your swords into plowsheds and your spears into pruning hooks."
Yeah.
So in time of war, there was only so much metal, so people would literally beat a pruning hook into a spear.
Yeah.
So it's literally the opposite of what people did in wartime, right? So you have people using when uh, when in First Samuel, Saul and Jonathan are at war. They are the only people in the army that have swords. No one else has a sword.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So
Huh.
even that, it like they're. I mean, you're living in America. You guys have an amendment all based on this. The idea of like you make it so that the population they're not allowed to own weapons.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's
the Israelites at this time, the Philistines wouldn't allow them to have a blacksmith. If you had a blacksmith, you might make something a little too
crazy.
sharp.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
might make something a little dual purpose. And
That's
so
just
how do we
crazy because
avoid that?
how do you even harvest stuff unless you have like something sharp, like a scythe or something?
Well, and even yeah, so if you, so a scythe is a great example. A scythe is a great farming implement,
Yeah.
but you couldn't actually
It would be hard to
efficiently.
get somebody. Yeah, it's true.
Yes, yeah, because the way that it works, it's actually on an angle. So it's meant for you to be standing up and for it to be perpendicular to the ground as you're swinging it, right?
Yeah.
So if you tried to hit someone with it to
You
make
just
the edge aligned, you'd have to hit them in the ankle,
yeah, cut them
right?
down
Leave,
like shot. Yeah, wheat. Yeah,
but
that's
it's
interesting.
yeah, but so that's a perfect example because they did have war scythes, but a war scythe is you take that blade and you completely change how it's aligned, how it's held. All those things are changed in order to make it into a weapon.
That's interesting.
Yeah. This comes up in Kung Fu too, because is it Kung Fu? There's a weapon that is you've probably seen it in like ninja movies and stuff. But it is supposed to be a scythe for cutting rice. And it's the same thing. People weren't allowed to own weapons. So in some traditions, the weapons are things that are farming implements.
That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
A flail is that too. You know, like when there's like a floppy bit on the end of the stick. That was
Yeah.
for beating out grain. That's what a flail is.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Man.
So Shamgar, which it's very interesting that his name means sword, um, because he doesn't have a sword. They don't have. They're not allowed to sharpen their own weapons. So even with Ehud, it specifically says that he made himself a sword, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
weapons are easily accessible, so he makes himself a sword. This guy basically has a shiv.
Yeah, yeah.
Shamgar is shivving people, right?
Yeah. That's good.
An ox goad. Do you know what an ox goad is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a point. They kind of a bigger version of barbed wire, right? Basically,
Well,
like a big spike to keep the oxen
it's
from crossing.
yeah, it'd be like that big, and sometimes
Oh,
in
I didn't
some
know it was that
traditions
big.
it's just a pointy stick. Like it
Yeah.
could just be you pick up a stick and you like if you're trying to get an animal to go, you just poke it like under there or on the butt, and you get them to move. Sometimes it would have a metal handle or a metal tip to it, but would
Wow.
usually be rounded because you're not actually trying to hurt the animal.
Yeah.
You're trying to cause discomfort so it goes in a particular way. So it to me really is like a shiv. Like he takes this implement and sharpens it and turns it into
It's just insane too. It says 600 people with an ox
yeah,
goad.
yeah, that's a lot of shanking. It's a lot of shanking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
I think this is going to go off the rails pretty quick, but I was a youth pastor for a brief period of time, and
Yeah.
I would tell the kids they could ask me anything. Now, if you open yourself up to that question, they will ask. So
That's fun.
the pastor's daughter asked one week, "What's a shank?" And I said, "A shank is an object which isn't a knife that you turn into a knife, like a toothbrush in prison." Exactly. Is it true that people get raped in prison?
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
but we really should move on. But that doesn't make any sense because they don't put guys and girls in the same prisons.
Oh my gosh. Oh
I
my.
just went, yep,
Oh
doesn't make
man.
sense. And then they just go, wait. So, and then it like dawns on them.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
they just go, wait. So they're all, nope, they do it anyway. Moving on.
That's so funny. I guess.
Yeah. So
That's weird. Yeah.
yes, I believe, uh, I believe that this is a perfect example, though, of the position that Israel is in. That they aren't doing this from a position of power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, if you think of what weapons are used throughout this book, right? You have a homemade sword, an ox goad, you
Mhm.
have torches and clay pots, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are the weapons? And to me, it also is an illustration that it is very clearly God who's doing this.
Mhm. Yeah.
These are the worst. This is all B team. This is all the last people you'd expect as heroes are the heroes.
Yeah. 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 It's great. I love these stories, man. These are great. Should we keep going? I'm not sure how much longer I can go, but we can maybe go a little more.
I'm kind of feeling the same way. I had a good time. I'm going to be happy to talk with you another time about following up. So maybe we should. If there's, is there anyone watching right now? I don't know.
There's two people, it says. I think it's Sandy
Okay.
and Mitch right now. There were more, but then they kind of people come in and go in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure. I
So-
mean, I don't mind. I don't mind keep talking too. I just like as far as reading, I'm like, once we get into Deborah, that seems to go on for a while.
Yeah,
But I love-
Deborah's 2 chapters.
I love the Song of Deborah. That's one of my favorite parts of Judges. So
I mean, yeah, on conversations we've had about authorship. Yeah.
So where is the part? Because I remember I was flipping while you were talking. I was trying to find it, but you said because there is a part where it says that they aren't like there isn't a blacksmith in the land. Is that after or before? 'Cause I can't
I
remember.
believe it. I believe it's in Samuel.
Oh, it's in Samuel. Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, I couldn't remember where that was. Yeah, it is
Yeah,
crazy. They're making weapons for all sorts of things. I didn't even really. I've never really paid attention to it that much before, but they are like, yeah, an ox goad. They're making their own weapons with this or that.
So it's 1 Samuel 13, verse 19. There were no blacksmiths in the land of Israel in those days. The Philistines wouldn't allow them for fear they would make swords and spears for the Hebrews.
Ah, gotcha. And that's talking about
So-
these days that we're in right now, basically.
Well, I mean, it continues on. Like when you you look at the context.
Yeah.
So to what extent they're in a position of power. Yeah, especially because the Philistines are already positioned as lording over them.
Yeah.
Yeah. If could you post the link on the StreamYard for people to come on if they want to?
Yeah. I did that earlier, but I'll do it again. Let's see if anyone wants to join in here.
Yeah. Anyone out there have any thoughts, concerns, questions,
On in.
funny stories about poop? We're in a
About
poop
poop.
section.
Yeah, that's crazy. See, my I read New King James and it says his entrails come out, and so I never knew it actually said like his like dung actually came out. I thought it was just like his intestines or something spilled out of his gut or something like that. But that's crazy.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think particularly this is just going to be a request for me. The the sources which are used for the New King James is in some places not the Hebrew, whereas the English Standard Version is mostly the Hebrew. So I think it's older and clearer. The English Standard Version is a pretty good word for word translation. So
yeah, I like ESV a lot. It flows better than NASB does, I think. I think ESV is a really good one.
Yeah, but the King James is better poetically. Hi, Sandy.
Hey, I've never used the English Standard Version.
Which one do you use?
It's clunky. I find it a little bit because it's word for word good, accurate. So that's its problem, but I like it. I like it a lot.
My first Bible I was given was the old King James. I have a new King James at the moment, and several hand-me-downs of various.
Nice.
Very nice.
And one Hebrew scripture from somewhere in Britain that I'm trying to learn to read.
Oh, weird. You're trying to learn to read the Hebrew?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
That's what Cal's doing right now. Cal's, I don't know how he's doing it. He's doing it really fast, though. Every day he's learning. Like, he can read it, basically, now. He just doesn't know what he's reading, for the most part.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So can he pronounce the sounds, or can he read the text?
Yeah, that was when I did university. I basically just learned how to read. I didn't do it out loud at all.
Al's been reading, and he's been talking to Yosef and Hezi, and he'll ask them, "Am I pronouncing this right?" And so he's just been reading through Isaiah and just reading the Hebrew, not really concerned about what it actually means or says, so that way he can get the language and the alphabet and understand that, and then the understanding will come later, I guess.
Changes,
words.
But it changes.
Hebrew?
Some of the pronunciation, like I was using the Aleph with Beth site that Jacob recommended, and sometimes when you're changing your words from singular to plural, or from some other variation, which I'm not going to be able to explain well because I completely suck at English grammar and I'm no better at Hebrew grammar. So sometimes, like even just with her basic, early lesson, you're learning the farm animals and stuff. So if you are talking about the cow, it's para, but if you say it in certain other sentences, the P becomes an F sound. So it's not just, and I'm a very slow learner.
It's interesting because the way that they morph is the same in other languages. So everyone knows the D and T. I say butter. I don't say butter, right?
Oh, now isn't that American, or is that the Canadian version? The D.
Well, I grew up right across from Detroit. So when you do those things that say, where are you from? Like you do a quiz, they think I'm Midwestern, like I'm a Midwesterner. Yeah. I don't do, my Michigan cousins were like, oh my God, Dave, I'm so glad to see you. Like they did the very Michigan accent, very Midwestern. Not that bad, but I say butter. And I had a speech impediment when I was younger too.
See, and I don't, because in fact, I got into an argument. My oldest is deaf. I got into an argument with the speech pathologist where where we used to live, where he was born, in Newmarket. And I was teaching her some of the sign language that we were learning, and she was teaching me some of, her and a communication disorder specialist, because he also has autism and some other stuff on the go. So we were kind of information sharing. What is it? The cognitive, what is that? Anyway, and so we had an argument one day about whether or not Jacob could say the word hot. I'm going to say that very slowly. She said that he was not. He was simply pronouncing the H and the O. And I said, of course he is. I can hear it. And she said, then she turned and looks at me and she says, say hot. And I went, hot. And she went, say butter. Say, she goes, you were born here, right? I went, yeah. She says, where's your family from? Scotland.
Yeah, there is. But
Yeah, my
like,
friends
that's
used to,
not butter.
they would torture me. Say, I want a bit of better butter, please.
Mhm.
Like, you guys are mean.
This actually, so as much as this seems like it's a wandering, this comes up later because the ability to pronounce becomes known as a shibboleth because of the
Really?
Book of Judges.
Yeah, I
Because
just
there's
read
a
that part.
situation where there's a group and they have an accent and they can't say shut.
Yes.
And so they say this word and they say Sibboleth and they go, nope. And they kill anyone who can't say shibboleth. So that has
part's weird.
become an expression actually in modern English that a shibboleth is when there's markers that only some people are able to pass and you can't fake it.
I
There's
didn't know
certain
that.
things that if you grew up a certain place, it's pretty clear, right? Like, I don't know if I'm married, and so there's rules about eating that I didn't grow up on, and I will always make the mistake, right? Like, it's a shibboleth. I didn't grow up with it. I will always make that mistake.
Sympathy. Yeah.
Mitch, I know you were dropping a couple of comments.
I do got to run.
We got
Sorry. I got to
You're
go
heading
real
out?
quick before. Yeah, but I'll leave it going so you guys just keep talking and stuff. I
Okay,
just
cool.
got to hit the road. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I'll leave the
Yeah.
stream going. So I think it'll just
Yeah,
go, and then when you guys leave, it'll end after a little bit. So
Or somebody watching will have to shut it down, or you could pop back and shut it down. Or something.
okay, I
Is it-
can do that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
I don't think
Yeah.
I can't talk for too much longer, but yeah. Let us.
Same.
I'd like to-
I'm just killing time because I mistook my physiotherapy appointment time.
Okay. Mitch, did you have we talked about your favorite guy? Is he your favorite guy because he gets one verse?
I just think it's so funny, everybody else
Yeah.
is getting these long, detailed kind of mini biographies. I guess his judgment wasn't too remarkable.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. One of my favorite ones is the people in the Bible who are only remembered in a verse that says, "May his name be forgotten." And it's just like, well, now we can. You shouldn't have it written if you want his name forgotten. Like,
Yeah. That is funny, and that's sort of a dark kind of curse. And you have to think if they're writing it down that they understood it had some kind of implication beyond its preservation in history. It's very.
do you know about the
disturbing.
book of Esther and how they would traditionally do that? How
Hmm.
they would. So, in Esther, does it deliberately say it? So the guy is supposed to be forgotten in Esther as well.
Haman? Haman?
Yeah, Haman. And so if you go to synagogue, they will do a play where they do the entire book. And if you are there, you're given noisemakers. And whenever his name is said, you are supposed to boo and hiss and yell and make noise so that his name is not heard. But you basically have the book memorized. So whenever his name appears, you say it, but no one hears it because his name is to be forgotten. It's to be wiped out. It's like it's a weird thing because memory in ancient thinking is not. We think of memory as an accident, like, oh, I remembered this. But in Hebrew thinking, memory is an action. You do things that make it so that you will remember. It requires your participation to remember things. And
That
so,
makes sense.
yeah, hearing is a command as well, right? because, and we know this now, paying attention is something that requires effort. It's not like, well, the sound entered my ear, so I heard you. It's like, no, to hear is to pay attention. To
It's
remember is to put the effort into memory.
maybe analogous to faith without works being dead or something. This whole, there is no concept that's absent of behavior really. It just kind of exists in your thought world.
Yeah, that's a good little bit. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, so there's also, I think there's some numerology, like significance to the number of judges which are chosen. And this is one of the reasons why I think it was with some time that the Book of Judges was written, because where it starts and where it stops seems to me very purposeful, incorporating a certain number of people and a certain number of judges. And so in order to get to that number, you sometimes have to put extra effort into including stuff in order to make the numbers perfect. It is true. Let me make this clear. God is also working in this time period, but there's a certain number of judges in the Book of Judges, but there's more judges than just that, because Samuel is also a judge, but he's not counted as one of the judges in the Book of Judges. You know what I mean? The leaders before this are also called it. So I think this one verse, it serves multiple purposes, keeping the number correct for the book itself, and then also bringing in this idea of the hero without a weapon, the guy with a shiv.
So that means a shiv is not considered a weapon?
Oh, a shiv is a weapon, but it's not a. There are weapons that are better weapons, and ones that are makeshift weapons, right? Like an axe that you would use to like to hit someone with, is different than an axe that you use to chop wood. And so if you see someone holding a battle axe, that's a different level of danger than someone holding a hatchet. Those are different items.
Oop, losing him for a minute. Yeah.
Oh,
that's
did you?
interesting.
Am I back? That's
Yep.
good, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was getting the text. Yeah, so I think that it's a way of thinking about it. There's a difference between a sword and a machete, even though a machete is basically a sword, right? One is slightly more dangerous than the other, even though it's like, what is the real difference? I mean, come on.
Well, the reason they were created, their purpose is different.
Yeah, exactly. And there was without a doubt situations where farming equipment would be used for fighting. It's just its deadliness and everything else. It's a lot more extreme when someone is winning with a makeshift weapon. Yeah.
Weapon. Okay, so that gets me back to 2 Corinthians, but so it's really weird, right? Because he says that he has these weapons of righteousness in his right and left hand. Very, very strange to me.
Now there were weapons that were carried with two hands. So a spear is more effective than a sword. This should be known by people. Like if you find yourself in a time paradox and you have to do a duel, pick up the spear, not the sword. Swords are cooler for fighting, so that's why you think of sword fighting when you think of the medieval era. But you only pulled out your sword if someone got beyond your spear, right? The knight with a lance. You literally kill the person further away from you. You are much safer with a spear than you are with a sword. But a spear would be held with two hands. Sometimes it's a spear and a shield, but sometimes a sword and shield would be counted as one weapon. Like we don't think of a shield as a weapon, but it would be sometimes thought of that way. And also at this time, there's a weapon called the scissors. Do you know about this? Where gladiators, one of the weapons was dual blades coming off of your hands. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out if there was a miniature Colosseum in Corinth, so that people would associate the dual wielding hands.
Yeah, but I don't know what the weapons of righteousness are, and I know you don't either. It's just stuck in my craw.
Well, it's interesting because Paul uses this metaphor several times. The notion of us
Yeah,
engaging in a kind of warfare, right?
that's
So
right.
I don't think you need to know exactly what he's talking about
It just
to get a
means
general sense.
behave righteously, and this is the weapons of a person who's engaged in this kind of combat with principalities and spirits and this sort of thing.
Yeah, and like in some spiritual traditions, they don't like the idea of calling a weekend away a retreat, because they're like, we're not retreating. This is we're moving forward. We're not retreating. Like, so even that language is military language, a retreat.
Right. So that's easy enough, and I think it really can just be like, come on, this is just, it's nothing specific. It's just, righteousness is the weapon, the acts and works of righteousness. But I was just wondering why he says this right hand, left hand thing. It's so funny to me.
What is the problem with it?
It just feels random with the weapons of righteousness for the right hand and for the left. I mean,
What's the whole text?
it's in 2 Corinthians 6, and he's talking about how his ministry is commended and why it's commended, and it's commended by great endurance, afflictions, hardships, and then good things like purity, knowledge, patience. And then he says, with the weapons of righteousness for the right hand and for the left. Maybe I'm really overthinking it, but it just seems weird to me that he would say for the right hand and for the left. It's some kind of literary kind of flourish that I'm not appreciating.
Don't know. I think I pretty much always just took that to mean that there is whatever it is that is being stood against, each hand gets its own version of a weapon of righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
It might be related to full commitment for something to be in left hand and right hand, as opposed.
That's a good thought. Well, you know what's really also kind of makes me fixated on it is how many poles there are. So he'll go on and say, right after that, he'll say, through honor and dishonor, through slander and praise, as impostors yet true. And so he's doing this weird, back and forth. Like first he says for the right hand and left hand, and then he goes to all these polar opposite kind of things that are commending him.
That's good. And we were kind of talking about this before too, that they're both a kind of opportunity. Like the good, when we were first talking, we're talking about the situation in Judges where they're in a rough spot, right? And so it still is a weapon. The church thinks in these terms that their suffering, their dying, is not them retreating or losing. It is like martyrdom is a way of moving forward. Is a way of winning, not a way of losing, right? It's not a receiving a blow. That it is in and of itself a kind of weapon. Not in the way martyrdom is a weapon now when we think of, but you know what I mean? A willingness to die, a right hand, left hand, a strong way and a weak way.
Then to cap it off, he'll next go into this thing about not being unequally yoked, and it feels like he just presented his commendations in the form of a lot of unequally yoked things, which I don't think we think that, just hearing what you just said, that those concepts are actually unequally yoked, but that in fact they could be. But there are things that I wonder if he's doing that to clarify, like, look, I've just presented all of these kind of polar opposites as somehow working together, but you shouldn't understand that in to mean that all polar opposites are working together in the same way. But and so he would say there are some things that would be unequally yoked and counterproductive to progress, like righteousness and lawlessness, light and darkness,
Right.
Christ and Belial, and so on. So,
Yeah, and certainly there's an idea that even with the mercy that is spoken of in the New Testament, that there was some kind of a temptation to, well, then isn't God more glorified if I'm forgiven for more sins? So if I do more sins, isn't that even more glorified?
are we able to let someone on? It looked like we got a message in the private chat.
Oh,
I don't know if we have that power or not.
I don't
I
know
do
if
not
it's,
know how to.
no, and I don't know if it would be whoever has the StreamYard.
Oh, I'm going to try to. Michael, I think I have it on my email. I'm going to email you right now the thing for you to join. Continue though.
Looks like we lost
Oh,
Mitch. Yeah, I'm not
lost
sure
Mitch.
what happened. I've got a couple more minutes. I was going to ask in that discussion. My mind is stuttering through some things I've listened to in some of the teachings that have been on Jacob's site. At one point, there was something that came up about right hand and left, where when you push somebody away with one hand, you draw them near with the other, or something. It was Hezzy would know, I think. And I was thinking, is there a point here that's not obvious because we're basically thinking in North American terms and not? And what was the other thing? Well, that was the main one I was thinking. Well, okay.
So this
when
is
it's brought up
something that I'm
the opposites, there's that whole how God created all the, like the thing and the no thing, like that. Yeah, I don't explain them well because I'm only just hearing about them first time this year, and like I said,
a way of thinking about it, and this to me is a complete shift of thinking for a lot of people. A lot of people, particularly Christians, are raised to believe that essentially the reason why the church had to happen is because God tried with Israel and failed. And I don't think it's a failure. I think that the parts where there is failure is included in the story. And the biggest example of this is the story of Joseph, which is why the Josephite Messiah, if you don't know anything about this, it's a very long conversation.
I've heard variations of, yeah.
But a way of thinking about the Joseph story, sorry, one second. A way of thinking of the Joseph Messiah, or sorry, the story of Joseph at the end of Genesis. I think the Joseph story is resolving the story of Cain and Abel. Because the word for wanting, essentially, I think Cain is the descendant of the serpent, symbolically. So that thing where it says, sin is at the door and its desire is for you. People have noted, okay, that word for desire means that it's like a hungry cat that wants to eat you. Desire could mean that. There's another thing that it might be wanting to do at the door. And that like we used to use this term that if you were really hungry for something, you might say, oh, I lust for steak. Right now we only use it sexually, but the term lust is the desire to, it's eros, right? The desire that you want to be one with, and you want to be one with it by eating it or creating a child with it. So its desire is for you. The sin that's at the door either wants to consume Cain or it wants to make a baby with Cain. And I think that in other places, specifically in the New Testament, Cain is referred to as of the evil one. So right before that story, there's the idea that there's a son of the serpent, a descendant of the serpent, and there's a descendant of the woman. Cain, in his decision in embracing sin, is becoming a descendant of the serpent. Okay, kills Abel, the righteous. So I think that is a major term in Genesis, like a turning point in Genesis, where the question is, how could good possibly happen? How could God win if the evil man kills the good man? And that story is reintroduced over and over again through the warring brothers motif, and is only finally resolved in Joseph, where what if God planned for the fact that Joseph would be betrayed? What if God incorporated that, and in him being betrayed was not going off of God's plan and now nothing good can happen? What if even that brought about God's will? And
Yep.
that's why Joseph is able to forgive his brothers. He says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Right? So for us to be part of a bigger story, to see where it's all going, enables us to forgive as well, which is why it's also absolutely ridiculous that anti-Semitism comes out of the idea that Jesus was killed by the Jews. It's like, first off, I mean, this is a very long conversation, but
I
that's
was going to
not.
say something, but you go ahead.
Yeah, that's if you're thinking in these terms, it's what if we as people are failures, and it's not merely God working in our strength, it's also God working in our weakness. And if that were not the case, God couldn't work at all. How's that?
Well, and I was going to say, even Jesus himself implies that it's God who took his life.
Yeah.
He pretty much says that. So therefore, how would it be anybody else?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah. Well, actually, I think a lot of things, but I've had a lot of things going on in life that, and I get told I think too much, but that strength and weakness is really important, that place. And even if we don't understand all of the facts and implications of it in any given moment, I think it's still a really important part of the story for us as individuals, as well as for what we read in the scripture.
Yeah. Yeah. And not giving ourselves a pass as a result of knowing God uses. I said it to people before that if someone ever says they don't have any regrets, like that's become a big thing where people say no regrets. Oh, well, if I didn't make the mistakes, then I wouldn't have gotten here and all this other stuff. I think if someone says no regrets, what they're telling you is that they're a psychopath. I think that's what that translates to. You should have regrets. For the love of God, please have regrets.
Yeah, I had some really, really tough conversations with some pastors that I knew about that style of dynamic, that those places where you walk through places where it's not that you don't will evil upon yourself or somebody else. That's not like you're not more holy because you've had a harder life or more this or that. Like that's just not how God works. At the same time, it's a really it's a really difficult spot, I found, to discuss things with people when the structure around it isn't built on frameworks that accommodate what you're really trying to get at. And so, yeah, I'm really enjoying some of the conversations I get to listen to here and some of the framework I get to see here because, yeah, it fills out a lot of places. that I've tried
Yeah.
to do things.
Yeah.
Mhm. But
I think that's I think that's a very nice sentiment. I think we either end here. We probably should end here because otherwise, I'm just going to talk to you for a very long time about sign language.
can do
It's
that at some point. Yeah, absolutely can do that at some point.
one of my favorite topics. I love it so
Really?
much. Yeah, I have. I just think it's absolutely fascinating. I think everyone should know sign language because such a strong number of people will go deaf. And I used to be into punk rock.
Mhm.
So the ability to speak to someone when sound won't work is like imagine you're in two cars next to each other and you have to ask the person, can I please go in like I got in the wrong lane, can I please go in front of you? And even though the person can't hear you, you could just look at them and they would understand what you like.
I have
It's
those
amazing to me.
conversations. And I
It's
get told I
amazing.
sign at people a lot.
It's incredible. Yeah, and then if they can't hear you and yeah, you're in a situation where or you need to be quiet, but you still want to communicate to someone, to what extent that would be great. And like literally having a form of speaking where if one of your senses fail, like my dad is losing his hearing, if like, yeah, it's fine you're losing your hearing, everyone communicates in two languages. You
Yeah.
just switch to your secondary thing instead of becoming incredibly isolated. And then the other thing is that my friend's grandfather was Bob Rumble. Do you know who Bob Rumble is?
Absolutely. Who is good friends with my Uncle George. And we went and got involved. We've been involved with them since my son was about 1.5 or 2.
Yeah. So my friends, two of my friends are very big in the deaf community in Ontario. If anyone I know is like I know a couple of people who are translators and a bunch of other stuff, and everyone knows who Rob and Vera are. So those are friends of mine who are directly related to Bob Rumble, and they all did the camp growing up and all that stuff. Anyway, I can talk about this for too long.
And I do have physio to get to, so it's been really nice. But absolutely, we can chat about that sometime.
And sorry for the other people who are trying to get on. We will in the future when we have another one of those conversations. You'll be invited on. We'll try to get the link working next time.
Well,
So
and I
sorry.
wonder if it takes something on the StreamYard end to actually. I haven't tried it yet. I have a StreamYard account, but I haven't yet tried like a live chat. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, when Jacob does it, he just leaves it at the top oftentimes. So the next time we're going to be talking about jail and Deborah and Cesara, a great story that if you were a grade 6 boy was one of those stories you liked a lot.
Cool. Are you doing a regular time or just kind of?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we will again do it at this time. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Been lovely,
Okay.
lovely chatting.
Great
And
talking to you.
hopefully somebody comes and shuts this down in the back end.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for having watched.
Bye.